Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Aggressive Progressive. I thought I'd sit here with a smile for a while. I'm here with the raging agent, Steve O. Hello, Steve.
Hey, what's up, Jimmy?
Good to see you. Also with us is the miserable liberal. It's Stef Zamorano. Hi, Stef. How are you?
I'm miserable.
Yes, she is. We're going to have a special guest coming up later in the next segment. Fingers crossed.
An in-person guest.
In-person guest.
Yeah.
Hilarious comedian. You know him. You love him from many things. 30 Rock. His name is Judah Friedlander, and he will be here. He's got a Netflix special out. It's called The United States is the Greatest Country. America is the greatest country in the United States. And it's up for a Webby Award. So he's here to talk about it. And we're going to show you a clip of that as soon as he gets here. Today we're going to be talking about the teacher strikes that's happening in Arizona. We're also going to be talking about some great new news from Amazon and how they treat their workers. We're going to take a look at MSNBC. Let somebody come on to tell the truth about the Syrian war uninterrupted. And now we're going to try to figure out who's going to be fired over that. Plus, there's a report from the One American News Network, which is a conservative right-wing pro-Trump news organization that sent a reporter into Syria to investigate the latest chemical attacks, and they have a report. So we're gonna listen to that report, and we'll take it with a grain of salt. But let's remember the people who lie to us constantly about Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, and war of any nature is the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, and all the establishment news, which is why we have a job. Because they don't tell you the truth about war, and they're not telling you the truth about Syria right now, and they're not telling you the truth about the bombing or the chemical attacks. They're giving you propaganda from Saudi Arabia, at the behest of Saudi Arabia and Israel. So that's why we're in Syria. Okay, so we're gonna get to all that. But first, I have a hernia. And that's why I'm wearing, you can't tell, but I'm wearing sweatpants. And I don't know if you've ever had hernia surgery. The after the hernia is worse. So that's why I've been putting it off. And now I don't know if I can put it off anymore. So I can't wear pants anymore.
So for those who don't know, Jimmy's naked underneath.
I'm a little bit naked.
You know, Jimmy, can I make a recommendation?
Yeah, get a hernia.
No, you could do that. But if you don't want to, how about a kilt?
Okay.
You are Irish, right?
Yes.
I know kilts are Scottish, but still, it's close. It's
That's
right there, yeah.
It's not the skirt, it's a kilt. All right.
I thought we were gonna say that for the podcast portion of the show.
For the podcast
but we're hitting it right away. I like it.
I'm trying to get comfortable.
Do you want me to slide over a little bit? I'll slide over.
It's not working.
I think he's okay.
It's really hurting today. Anyway, here we go. Oh, I wish I was kidding. Okay, whew. You know what, I had the seatbelt on in the car, and then we had to slam her on. We had almost an accident, we had to slam her on, and then it tightened up. And that's what I think happened, Steve. Are you flubbing? What is that called, flubbing? Oh, I should have put that story together.
No, you told me to find the link for what I told you about the Syria investigation.
Okay.
Oh.
So let's talk about the teacher strike, because in Arizona, because I showed you before, Michael Moore talked about the West Virginia teacher strike, and it was super successful and only took 9 days. And they won big, meaning they got education funded instead of funding a war or giving a tax break to a coal company. They decided to fund education in West Virginia. And Michael Moore was on a town hall with Bernie Sanders, and he was lamenting the lack of coverage about the West Virginia teacher strike. And I usually have that video. Let me see if I have it, because it was pretty powerful. Let me just find it. Steve, tell me what you're looking up now. I would love to know.
Well, you know, can I just add one more thing? When Michael Moore was highlighting that, he talked about how I believe the union is made up of 74% of women. And I just wanted to add additionally that this union wasn't just trying to protect their interests, their own interests as teachers, but they wanted the clerical staff to be supported and other government agencies. So it's like this one union, teachers union, is taking on a lot of people right now on behalf of other members, non-members rather.
And one thing that I'm really happy about is that the unions are actually fighting for education, not just their own pay. So in many instances, the state is trying to pay off the union by saying, we'll give you raises, go away. And the union is saying that's not good enough. We don't want just raises. We want the infrastructure to be there for children so that we can have a proper educational framework in place. So they want funding for facilities, for books, and other educational infrastructure that's necessary for a vibrant and an effective educational process. So I like it. I love it that the teachers are not just taking their own money and just going away.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that come on, don't you want teachers who are paid well? Don't you want that this particular profession attracts professionals? And that, really, I think teachers should be making six figures. The amount of effort that it takes to instruct a class and to procure units of study that are not only engaging but relevant to a student's life, it's hard, it's challenging. And, that these teachers who taught for 13 years in West Virginia were only making under $40,000 a year. That's awful. 13 years in service for public education. So I walk with teachers, I support teachers, and I support unions because they're there to protect the workers.
Okay, so here it is. I found it finally. Thank God, right? Such good timing. So here's what Michael Moore had to say about the West Virginia teacher strike.
This is a union. This union brought down the state apparatus at 75% women in this union. And they rose up, and Bernie, I didn't see hardly anything in the corporate media about this on any of the networks, even some of the networks that we watch, were, Russia, turn the channel, Russia. And I'm not saying that's not important.
You forgot about Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, okay. Stormy Daniels and Don Jr. and, whoever else, all the shiny keys to distract us. That's what goes on in the media. All the other things that they talk about, and we should be seeing this. This we should see. We should know about the West Virginia teacher strike and the victory. What inspiration that would be around the country if you saw people in West Virginia do this, who haven't had a strike like this in forever. And they don't show this, Bernie, because what would happen if they did?
Okay, so what would happen if they did? Well, I'm going to show you what's been happening. Show you right now. Here's what's been happening. Defiant no more. Arizona governor bends to teachers' demand. So that's what is going to happen now. So it's catching on. So it went from West Virginia, and it went to Kentucky, Oklahoma, and now it's in Arizona. These are all red states. These are unions breaking the back of their right-wing legislators because they have the truth on their side. We need to fund education, okay? So let's just break it down very briefly what's going on in Arizona. As recently as Tuesday, a defiant Arizona governor refused to meet with now this is last Tuesday, teachers threatening to strike over low pay and said he was sticking with a 1% raise proposal. Pretty ballsy, huh? Pretty ballsy. But by Thursday, Republican Doug Ducey managed to scrape $274 million from the cash-starved state's coffers to offer a 9% wage hike starting this fall, and he's following that with a 5% more each in 2019 and 2020 school years. But that's kind of amazing how he went from no, screw you, 1%, that's it, to all of a sudden, look at that, a 10% raise. Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, and for those who think that's an excessive raise, it's only because they had cut teachers' pay
by $1 billion.
Yeah, so now it's a bit of a catch-up plus a little bit of a modest normal raise, not a large raise.
Right, at all.
Yeah.
Oh, the teachers are really
raking
it in, those money grubbers, right? Yeah. So here we go. He's also counting the 1% raise the legislator approved for the current school to call it a 20% overall raise. It's amazing what a threatened teacher strike in an election year can get the Republicans to do, said Democratic Representative Rebecca Rios. I'm impressed. Joe Thomas, president of the Arizona Education Association, warned against relying on promises. Don't believe anything besides what they put in the budget, he said. a legislature that says they're going to give us a 5% raise in a budget a year away. Well, they might as well promise every kindergarten teacher a pony. So Ducey's plan does not include pay raises for others, including school counselors, custodians, and lunchroom workers. And Steph, this is what they were holding out for in Oklahoma, right? They were like, no, it's everybody else. And you also have to give money to our books, and you have to give money for air conditioning, and you have to give money to the cafeteria staff and the janitor. So the teachers were the ones leading the way on this. So isn't it something that it takes a group of majority women to show grit and strength and stand up for what's right? But listen, there's a lot more to this story. We're up against a break because we take breaks now. And so we'll be right back after this break with a lot more of this teacher story. And hopefully our favorite comedian, Judah Friedlander, will be here. Okay.
You know, if you see something on Fox and Friends, it's negative. And there is a particular deadline because the government needs to be funded by Friday. Because the way we operate as the largest, most powerful country in the world is that we fund our government in 2-week increments, basically. And then we go crazy every couple of weeks. But there's a lot in this, and I want to talk about some of it. So I'm going to read this first graphic. Feel free to jump in if there's something that you find interesting here. Currently, the bill has more than $1 billion in border security funding. That's additional funding, by the way. We spend tons on border security anyway. Now, none of it can actually be used for President Donald Trump's concrete wall. Currently, it allows for something like, I think, 33 miles of additional border fencing, as well as border security and things like that. Is a lot less than what Trump was requesting. He wanted $25 billion. A lot of that was going to be spent specifically on the wall. He also wanted things like, well, we'll turn to some of that. But what do you think about this so far?
When it comes to immigration, this is one of the strengths, I think, of the Democrats sort of holding a line. There are a lot of problems in this as well, but when it comes to immigration specifically and the border wall, I'm really happy that they didn't cave to that. I didn't think that they really would, but it's weird that it's an actual concern we need to have, that there isn't funding for that. And also the protection of sanctuary cities was something that I wanted to make sure, not like me, like the all-seeing almighty grace, but something that a lot of I know that a lot of people are very concerned about that. Now, I do think that when it comes to DACA, like that's something that I wish the Democrats had held fast on. Yeah. But this was an area that I thought that they held some ground on, which I thought was good.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point. It doesn't defund sanctuary cities, which is one of the things they've been talking about on the Republican side for quite some time. And it's already, so I've been like looking at the responses to what's in this bill from both the left and from the right. And what's great about our country, and this is a great example of it, is everybody's pissed off.
Yep.
Everybody thinks that there's stuff in here that shouldn't be in here, stuff that isn't in here that should be. The defunding of sanctuary cities is actually a big part of that on the right's side. They're criticizing that. And I agree with you on them not funding the wall here. The problem is, though, that we don't have one big battle over the wall. we will have to have that in every bill, every spending bill, every immigration bill, but every unrelated bill as well, because the way that it works is they can slip it into anything they want. So we have to constantly be on the lookout for their attempts to throw $10 to $60 billion into creating this wall.
Yeah, and so it's sort of strange because now it's this vague sort of technology budget that they're creating for border security, and that's kind of amorphous. We don't exactly know what the specifics are of that, and that is particularly alarming.
Yeah.
Good, it's not going to concrete, but weird, it's going to what? Like some
drones?
Yeah, technology,
satellite imagery. Yeah, we don't exactly know.
Everybody, welcome back to the Aggressive Progressives. I'm here with the Raging Agent, Steve O, the Miserable Liberal, and we have a special guest with us. It's Judah Friedlander from Netflix, ladies and gentlemen. His latest special called The United States is the Greatest Country in America. It's called America is the Greatest Country in the United States. And it's up for a Webby Award, and there, look at that, there it is. Yep. So Judah, thanks for being here. How are you?
Incredible. You know, so apparently I just got here, it was a little late.
It's okay, we're talking about the teacher strike.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about your special in just a minute.
Okay, yeah, right. Tardiness has always been an issue for me.
Me too.
And this is a school issue we're talking about.
And you're tardy.
I know,
sorry. So I think
and she's a teacher.
And she's a teacher, and so you get a demerit and you have to go to the principal's office.
Should I go now or?
Stay now.
Oh, okay, all right.
All right.
I'll make up for it.
So when we left you before the break, the governor of Arizona has agreed, he gave in to give them a 20% raise, but the raise does not include pay raises for others, including school counselors, custodians, and lunchroom workers, right? So that's not good. There is also an issue of There's also an issue of adequate funding for classrooms. My students deserve to have repairs on their buildings and working plumbing and holes in walls patched, said TUSD's Harris. Her students need working air conditioners, said Kelly Wolf, who teaches 6th grade language arts in Lake Havasu United School District. It gets hot in Lake Havasu.
Oh my God, it's
I've been to Lake
unbearably hot.
Havasu. It is unbearably hot. You have to have working air conditioners. Kelly Fisher complained about the lack of bus drivers for kindergartners in the Deer Valley Unified School District, as well as the fact that there are not speech teachers on each campus. Students need smaller class sizes, said Dylan Wegela, a 7th grade social studies teacher in the Kyrene Elementary School District. I can't walk back into my classroom without getting more for our students and this movement, Wegela said. The governor, who last year had recommended a pay raise of just 0.4%, is now making this offer. Without their collective efforts, we wouldn't be having these discussions, Ogle said. That's a tremendous win, and I hope they celebrate it. That's also the assessment of Beth Simic, president of the Arizona PTA, who called the governor's newfound commitment of dollars, quote, nothing short of a supernatural miracle. But she said accepting the governor's offer does not preclude pressuring Ducey and lawmakers for the other things teachers want, like restoring the $1 billion in cuts to K through 12 education over the last decade and bringing teacher salaries up to the national average. Because in Oklahoma, just the threat of a walkout produced raises of $6,100 per teacher and $1,250 for other school professionals. Teachers walked away seeking not just more money in salaries, but $200 million more for other classroom needs versus the $50 million lawmakers provided. So there's a big victory for unions right there. That's a real big victory for unions. And that's a big victory for the people over a bought government. That's what this is all about. So this is a big victory, and this should be touted. In fact, the teachers are the one leading the way now in our culture. Majority women unions are the ones with the grit to fight back against the bastards. Judah, any comment on the teacher strike? Now, a lot of people will tell you teachers make a lot of money. Do people ever tell you that?
No, yeah, because I'm always seeing the teachers, driving around in their Lamborghinis.
Yes.
Right before they're going to teach and stuff like that. And none of them take summer jobs or anything like that.
No.
I think it's pretty exciting, with not just the teacher activity, but the student activity with all the things that the students are doing when it comes to different issues. So who knew school could be so exciting? I think, but it shows you when you organize, you can actually have some power. Because if you don't organize, if you're one person speaking up about this and you're a teacher, you're probably you might get axed or fired. But if everyone does it, then you can actually have a voice.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to draw a contrast. I mean, look how hard teachers have to fight. Look how hard students have to fight for just basic, ordinary, keep up with inflation type of benefits and salaries. Meanwhile, the Pentagon can get an extra $200 billion, extra $80 billion, and there's no fighting. There's no fighting at all. It's almost just given to them and it's celebrated. So Trump brags about how they're going to add an extra 80 billion. It's going to be the biggest military budget ever. They're going to bring the military back. Back from what? I don't know. But those dollars are readily available at all times. It's just that when dollars are going to working class, middle class, to the students, to teachers, in those instances, you have to fight tooth and nail. You have to risk getting fired. You have to risk losing your house and your apartment because you're not getting paid or during the strike. So it's just incredible this victory and how hard fought it is. And I want to give the proper recognition to the teachers for the sacrifice that they have to make to bring about these changes.
Yeah, a lot of them were, because there's some of in Oklahoma, I know that some of the school districts didn't shut down, and so then they had to pay people to go in out of their own pocket so they could go strike. And right, there was crazy things like that.
Yeah, there was an article where you read that a teacher paid a substitute to go in and teach for them. And I can't even begin to wrap my brain around how you can do that, how you can afford that. And what these people are doing they're raising the standard of living, not just for their own family, but for the communities.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening. Teachers are our saviors now for the economic survival of middle class people, right? Because there are no unions left. And Jude, are you in a union? You're in a union, right?
I'm not sure. There's no. No, I am. There's an actors union that I'm in. Stand-up comedy, no union.
No union.
It'd be interesting if there was. And they sort of tried in New York. They sort of tried to do that for a little bit.
And how did that work?
Well, we were trying to get a pay raise. Since the 80s, the pay for a weekend spot at the New York City Comedy Clubs was $50. And then in the early 2000s, I think it was $60. So in 20 years, it had gone up $10. And the city was so much more expensive.
Right.
So you're getting $60 a spot. So the comedians were against forming a union, couldn't get them to form a union, but we formed a coalition just to get a raise. And that was very hard, took a lot of work, and they were able to get it up to 75 a spot.
Really?
Yeah, so it was effective, but it was interesting how many comedians did not want to, they wanted the pay raise, but they didn't want to form any kind of a union.
And what do you think that mentality is? Can you guess?
Fear, I think, of change is some of it. Not caring about other people. Just being a narcissist and just thinking about yourself. It's like, well, I just want one for me. I don't care. Who cares about that guy? I think there's a lot of that. But this is interesting. When the government, like you were saying, they always have money for war, but not for education. And education of students, that's the future. So basically, they don't care about the future. If you're not putting money into the future, that means they don't care about the future.
Well,
they're putting money into bombs, but not into kids.
Well, I don't believe anything that they say.
Yeah.
They definitely don't care about the future. They don't care at all about children. They talk a big game about children and family and children. About the children.
Yeah.
No, they don't care about the children at all. And just like they don't care about the terrorists. If they care about terrorism and they really want to fight terrorism, they would do two things. Okay, they would stop selling arms into the Middle East and these regions where the arms will be handed over to the terrorists in some way or another. And the second thing you would do is you would crack down on the big banks so the funding for terrorism stops. But neither of those things happen because we don't care about terrorism. In fact, terrorism is good because it justifies a lot of our military action and the increase in Pentagon spending. So whenever I hear someone talking about how much they care about children and terrorism, I call bullshit on that.
I hear you.
We're left with an economy where all the good jobs were turned into crappy jobs, and then they were shipped to poor countries, to people in more desperate situations. So why do they do that? Well, because the company who sends that job to a poorer person in a more desperate situation now gets to make all that more money. They don't have to pay a wage to deliver that product. So all that profit, it comes back to the company, but it doesn't come back to the country. You mean it doesn't come back to the United States. It doesn't come back to our workers, and it doesn't go filter back into the economy. It goes back into the pocket of the owner class, the 1%. So if you own stock in that company, or if you're an executive at that company, you make more money. No one else makes money. No one. And so that's why we have the biggest income disparity since medieval times right now in the United States, because we've had a corporate capture of our government. And Bernie Sanders identified that problem, and they immediately smeared him as a Russian bot. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like these major, huge corporations are essentially their own little nation states, meaning that they are just like another country in and of itself. They're multinational and it's comprised of a group of elites, but they don't have to spend money on defense or everything else because our actual government, our actual nation state provides all of that. All they do is maximize, sucking the dollars, all the profits, all the wealth is created by other workers. They just maximize that for themselves. That's their one goal. And so, they've captured our larger nation state to provide all the infrastructure, the currency, the laws, everything so that they can do what they do, which is to maximize profit.
And what does that get us? That gets us this.
I work 3 jobs and I feel like I contribute.
You work 3 jobs?
3 jobs, yes.
Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic that you're doing that.
We'll be right back after this.